Good morning and welcome to your very next episode of Roll Call Mondays, where Brandon and I discuss the favorite topics that you have over being a player.
Welcome back, guys. Hey, ready to jump right into it?
Yeah, I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Logan. I did introduce him. That guy's Brandon. But you might hopefully know that.
Hopefully. And if you don't, now you do. Today's episode, we are going over how can you make your character feel alive?
How do you make your character feel more alive?
I think one that probably everybody knows and is probably the most obvious, but it's like, you have to kind of create those strong emotional arcs and like personality quirks and backstory depths. And I guess we can break that down a little bit further. The one thing we kind of discussed was, you start with a spark, not a stat block. So meaning that cool idea you have, you run with that. Don't worry about trying to min-max the statistics because you need to, maybe in your party setting, you're the dex guy and it's kind of been established. So you're like, okay, well, I have to max my dex. Then, well, I need my constitution to be higher,
Yeah.
Come up with that idea, that character that fits that dex mold, and then just let that character fill the stat block, like it's okay for whatever happens.
Gotcha. So you're saying instead of building a stat block and having a character fill that role, you're having the character and the stat block is filling that character in. That way you're not building your character around what you're trying to be. You already have that character in mind.
Yeah. So it's like, it's the stat block is tandem. The stat block happens because of the cool character that you came up with, because, which I guess kind of dives into our second point, which is flaws. If we kind of want to marry them together, because if you have a great flaw in a character, well, that stat block is going to react to that,
Yeah, if you can't talk to people, or if you're dumber than a box of rocks.
Yeah.
Or never picked up a weight in your life.
Exactly.
Okay.
That allows you to be that character.
Yeah.
Without like, I am mute, but my charisma is still it's 18. Now, of course, there are really fun ways around that. There are really fun ways outside of talking to still be charismatic in certain fashions. But if or you are really weak, well, it doesn't make sense for your strength to be even a 12 or a 14. It's okay for it to be an 8. In fact, I think we would both encourage you to have an 8 or a 7.
Absolutely.
It's really fun to have a negative pull on those, so it is good to suck at something.
The flaws shouldn't just be, I'm not good at this. There should be a manifestation in your stat block of those flaws. Like, I'm not good at this. Here's my -2.
Yeah.
Here's my -2 to intelligence that I can hardly read. Or, here's my -1 to charisma where I just piss people off anytime I talk to them. I rub them the wrong way, or I can't make a deal. I get charged over every time I go to the store.
Yeah.
Flaws would just give your character that depth, but you didn't build them around that
Correct.
flaw.
Don't you think? I mean, I just feel like that helps bring them to life. Like, that brings that character to life, because now, hey, Logan's character isn't great at everything, and that's cool. In a one-on-one D&D setting where we talk about a lot, it does change the dynamic a little bit. But in a party setting, meeting more players around the table, it makes everybody important from that reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you do to make sure that your character's flaws and their story themselves, how would you tie that to the story?
So the good thing I think to pull here is you can build relationships with NPCs. One thing that when we started our last campaign, you came to me and you asked me to, I don't know if you gave me a disclosed number of ones or I just gave you a disclosed number of NPCs, but I think I created 3 to 5 NPCs that I said, hey, here are these guys that you requested, and you're like, sweet, and that's literally all you gave me. But then you had the liberty to plugging them into the game, into the character, and now that I think we've come across a handful of them in our campaign, it's given me a lot of agency because I was able to be like, oh, I know him. That makes me feel alive because I made these things in my history. And so now I go, oh, okay, I can tie this together.
Yeah.
In fact, there's one of them that is now on the ship because of it.
There is, true.
That I would have never anticipated that happening.
Yeah.
But it's almost because I felt like Carson had a pull to him.
Mm-hmm.
There's that history and that like lifelong friendship that we had that I was like, this makes perfect sense for you to come be part of this and be the chef on the ship.
But it essentially just added richness to your character.
Absolutely.
It was just an extra point of more depth to your backstory.
Yeah.
That you put in before actually coming to the table that helped flesh out who Carson was.
Right.
He wasn't some loner. He had friends. He had a family. Who were these people in the world to him, and how did they fit in wherever he fit in as well?
Yeah, and I think it's really important. I mean, it's perfectly fine depending on what your dungeon master is asking of you when you start a campaign. You know, like what you guys agree on in your session 0-0s. You know, every dungeon master likes to start their games differently. Perfectly fine. You know, no big deal. You know, some are cool with you giving them a blank piece of paper, and you know that's the way you want to run that character.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think kind of leads into one of the other points we wanted to make was it kind of you have to let that character change. And when you give a dungeon master a blank piece of paper, well, boy, if you let your character grow from what the dungeon master throws at you, that makes your character like that's another great way to just make a character feel alive. You know?
Yeah. And I do think that your character should change, not just from what the DM throws at you,
Sure.
but the way you interact with the other party.
Absolutely.
The party has to shape your character themselves. Obviously, when we play one-on-one D&D, that's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But the environment where your where your character finds themselves should shape them. Are they going through a lot of tragedy? How's that going to affect them? Are they going to be able to roll with the punches, or are they going to take that hard? But then we have to think about whenever we are building that character, this is what we can expect. We are becoming an adventurer, and we're going to get into some very heavy things. We're going to see death. We're going to see our friends die, loved ones. We're going to have death on our hands. How is that going to change us?
Well, it's the opposite too, right? Like, along with death, you're also going to have like the highs of making thousands of gold pieces when before you might have been only making, you know, a couple hundred a year, maybe, you know, depending on what rations. We all love gold disparity and Dungeons and Dragons.
Wrecking the economy one adventuring party at a time.
But, you know, like, if your character was a real life character in that world, you know, he might have barely been scraping by. And then all of a sudden, you know, he just defeated this beholder, and the king goes, hey, we really appreciate that. Here's 25,000 gold, you know, whatever have you. But, like, now all of a sudden you have to do the highs, too. So, like, how does your character react to that? Well, does he go nuts with power? Does he just buy everything? Does he hoard that money?
Yeah.
You know, is he trying to like take it from the party? It's that allowing your character to feel those emotions, in which some of it comes down to acting, but allowing your character to feel the emotions of like where in our situation, how does my character evolve? Maybe that's a good word for it. I was here, and that's great, but now that we've now established these new next steps, my character feels a little different. You know, maybe towards an NPC or towards another character, you know, and allowing them to evolve in the story. So,
and definitely that growth shouldn't just happen once.
No.
You can grow in response to how you grew from there. The moment you do become greedy, does your character recognize it? Or do they go full dragon? Or do they take a step back and say, wow, that wasn't who I meant to be on this journey, and I need to reevaluate.
Yeah.
Do they continue adventuring? That's hopefully, you don't want to come to that eventuality. It's really hard on the character, but also the party, if they just give up. So we don't want that to ever happen. So how do you avoid that from happening?
Well, I think that also leads to another good point that in order to make your characters feel alive, they have to have the want to be part of the party, which I think kind of fits in this same thing we're discussing now. Like your character, in order to be in an adventuring group, he has to or she has to want to be part of that adventuring group. You know, it's cool if you are playing a loner character that's been a hermit and he's been in the woods and in caves all his life. and somehow he gets the call to be in this adventuring group. Well, eventually he does have to evolve and slightly change into being part of the group. Like he has to welcome that idea and want to do that.
Yeah.
Not only does that make your life easier and make the storytelling better, it helps like guide the dungeon master into like, you know, dare I say, like help mold the party into the story. Like there's not that friction, you know, so that evolution of the character helps, you know, I think as a whole on the storytelling.
So what you're saying is if you continue to make ties with whatever's around you in the world, be that your other characters, the NPCs, the story going on, you're gonna have a character that feels alive?
I think so, you know. I think that'd be pretty well stated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you guys can think of anything else on tips to make your character feel alive, be sure to get in the comments and let us know. Start a conversation down there. But otherwise,
yeah. Don't forget to check us out on Wednesdays. There's still a little tidbit where you can kind of watch us throw these ideas that we like to throw at you guys into real life, hopefully. And we play our one-on-one campaign called Commander Slug. So it comes out every Wednesdays at noon, and hopefully you have time to catch that.
yeah. See you there.
All right. See you next Monday.